Waltham Forest Council has secured government funding to purchase 170 new-build flats to provide housing, they say, for Afghan and Ukrainian refugees. Well, £15 million in government funding will be allocated for the refugee housing and an additional 38 million quid in borrowing to buy 2 more blocks. This, surely, is utterly ridiculous. I mean, how much is this thing going to cost us? Well, that amount of money that I've just said there. But obviously this initiative is the council's dedication to addressing the refugee crisis, right? But at what cost? And Brits can't apply for this, can they? Shouldn't they be focusing maybe on some of their own residents' needs? Joining me now is the head of campaigns at the Taxpayers Alliance. It is Elliot Keck. Elliot, thank you very much. Taxpayers, I think, will be rightly concerned that we appear to have a council here that is throwing millions and millions and millions of pounds here at housing accommodation that is only going to be for refugees.
Absolutely. I think it's an important reminder of exactly why people have concerns over the number of migrants, whether refugees or economic migrants that come to the United Kingdom. We obviously saw that record number of 606,000 last year. And listen, we already know that we're not building enough for the people that live here already. We don't have enough housing. Yeah. And you can now see the additional pressures are being placed in an area, Waltham Forest, that is already hugely expensive. Average house prices of about £550,000, and you can see the pressure that it's going to be placing.
Exactly, and some of these flats, I mean, we'll be able to see if you're watching us online or on YouTube or whatever there, you know, nice, new-looking accommodation. Yeah. If you were to sell those on the open market, you get about £300,000 per lot. Yeah,
I think looking at that, that was also reduced market rate as well. That was 20% reduction, so it would probably actually be higher at the full market rate.
Yeah, and the idea that people who've just arrived in this country could get those, I think, in the middle of a housing crisis, seems a bit unfair.
There's a real question about whether this is the best way to manage refugees that come into the country. Obviously, we do have a responsibility to those that can't afford accommodation and to those that we've granted that refugee status, but whether or not giving them actually pretty prime real estate in one of the most expensive boroughs in the country, probably an area that actually, if they're on very low incomes, if they have very little money, they're going to find it quite difficult to live in because, you know, the prices of whether it's the pub, the restaurant, the supermarket is going to be higher than elsewhere in the country. And I think we do need to look again about whether this is the best way to do these things.
Also interest rates as well. So let's just say that Waltham Forest Council decides to borrow £38 million in the current economic climate.
Yeah, absolutely.
How long is it before they go pop?
Well, it's a good question, and we've seen the government have given them a grant of £15 million, and they should be using that for the purpose that it's been given, which is to house refugees. But to have to borrow an extra £38 million suggests that actually it's not affordable, and we should be looking at whether or not these refugees could be housed elsewhere, maybe places with lower housing costs, maybe places where there's gaps in the labour market and where actually these refugees might have a better opportunities in life.
People used to laugh and sneer, didn't they, when people would stand up and say, you know what, you've got more chance of getting a house in this country if you get on a dinghy and you come across from France, and actually you look at things like this and you think you probably do. Actually.
Yeah. Well, listen. I mean, I'm of the age where I know lots of parents of the people that I grew up with who are very stressed about whether or not their children will be able to afford a house. Prices are just so extortionately high. As I mentioned, if you're looking to buy a place in Waltham Forest, it's an average price of about well over £500,000, and now you're obviously seeing refugees get seemingly the first bite at the pie, and I think that is a problem, and that will irritate a lot of people in the country.
I'm going to read a statement now from Waltham Forest Council. So they've told us the council has secured funding from the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities and the Greater London Authority to secure homes for Ukrainian and Afghan refugee households taken in under recent Home Office schemes. The funding will secure new properties for the council. No one already on the housing waiting list will lose their place. Fine, but I don't think that means that they're going to be housed there, though, does it? But there we go. These properties will revert to council ownership when vacated and can then be used to help reduce the housing waiting list. No final decision has yet been made. The proposal will go to the Cabinet in November. The proposal, by the way, is supposed to go to the Cabinet, yes, in about 2 weeks' time. Let's just pick that apart quickly, really. So it says that these properties will revert to council ownership when vacated. Well, I mean, if you are a Ukrainian or an Afghan refugee who's just been given a free, pretty much, £300,000 or £400,000 prime bit of real estate in arguably the best city in the world, I mean, I'm not sure that you'd vacate that quickly, would you?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about the best city in the world. There are people on very, very good incomes in very important jobs in London that cannot afford to live in London, that have to often live quite long and grueling commutes outside of London, or if they do live in London, they have to live in incredibly subpar accommodation. And now you're seeing that refugees are being given, quite nice new accommodation in a pretty attractive part of London. So, listen, it is a problem. It's not an easy one to fix because refugees do need housing, and it's right to give them housing. It's about looking, is this cost the best use of taxpayers' money?